Tonight on Dr. Phil Primetime. Every 68 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted in this country. Is there a way to protect yourself before an assault? You woke up with somebody in your bed on top of you.
The way that the police acted, I thought that I had done something wrong.
My stalker found me on social media. She was pretty much stalking me every day in person. The first officer I spoke to laughed. He was like, "You're getting stalked?"
Is just saying no enough? Every 68 seconds, someone 12 years old or older is sexually assaulted in this country. But sadly, nearly 70% of these assaults are never even reported to the police. And you know what's worse? Even when someone does come forward, they rarely get justice because the incarceration rate of these violent perpetrators is less than 3%. So what offers the most protection when you feel you really need it? Is just saying no enough? What about obtaining a restraining order? Tonight, we'll start with Julianne's story. She was sound asleep in her home when an intruder broke in.
The evening I was sexually assaulted was very traumatizing. It was around 2:30 or 3 in the morning. I woke up and there was a man on top of me. I started screaming. My roommate was tied up and he could hear me screaming. My life was never the same after that night because it happened in my home, in my bed when I was asleep. I never sleep well again. I wake up soaked in sweat and having nightmares every night. The one place you're supposed to feel safest is your home. And when that's taken away from you, where do you feel safe? It changes you in ways that you wouldn't expect. I always want to have a certain amount of light at all times. There's never a feeling of safety. From the night it happened, I started staying with a friend of mine, and I was never alone. I don't go anywhere after dark. Even though my assault happened in my home, I know a lot of women that have been assaulted because they went out alone and a man saw them as a target and drugged them. I am constantly thinking about protecting myself. Looking in the back seat, carrying a weapon on your keychain, doing the self-defense classes. Think what you're wearing, like, can I be strangled with this? Analyzing where I am, what's around me, where the escape route is. I have to be seated a certain way. I don't like crowds. I used to be fun. I don't have relationships with men anymore. I removed any chance of ever having children because I would rather never, ever have a child than have a rapist's baby. I'll never get married because I don't trust men.
Julianne, thank you for being here. And I don't mean just thank you for being here. I mean, thank you for choosing to be here and talk about this because it would be a lot easier not to, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Why did you decide to do this?
I think that this is a topic that really needs to be brought to light because there's so much that people don't know about how the criminal justice system treats women. I just think it's really important that we start discussing this on a broader scale.
I don't think it's healthy to ask someone that's been through what you've been through to relive the details of something, but I'm not gonna ask you to do that now.
I appreciate that.
But what I do wanna talk about is how you felt after the fact. At some point, the event itself ended, but the trauma just began.
Correct. I think initially I was really in denial in a very strange way where because you're asleep. So you kind of hope maybe it's a dream and that it's not really happening. But even that night at the hospital, I was like, maybe this didn't happen. Maybe. And it's very strange, you know, psychologically you have this cognitive dissonance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Of like, your bed's the safe place, your home is your safe place, you know? And it had been a really chill evening. My roommate and I played some music, you know, we went to bed, and then you wake up with this violent attack. And, you know, she was screaming, I was screaming. She was tied up in her room, so she couldn't help me. But then when the police came in, they kicked down the door. They were screaming and yelling at us. They pointed guns at us. They wouldn't let me put clothes on. I was like just in a robe. They made me go to the hospital without clothes, which was completely unnecessary. They acted like they were really angry to be there. So because of the way the situation escalated and the way that the police acted, I thought that I had done something wrong. Maybe I did mess up. Like, what did I do? I didn't understand why they were treating me that way. Just like, well, why do you live in this neighborhood? Well, why did you walk home? What were you wearing?
Were you offended by the question
Yes.
in the moment?
Yes. I told them what I was wearing. I said, but I don't know why that would matter. And it didn't feel like they were asking me because they wanted to investigate. It felt very much like, we're asking you because what did you do to bring this on?
I would not be stupid enough to ever tell you I know how you feel. I will tell you I've talked to a lot of sexual assault survivors, and one of the things they've told me after the fact is that one of their reactions was to kind of knee-jerk run from their femininity, try to hide it. Did you have that reaction? When my sleep was off, it felt like I couldn't show up as my best self. That's why I'm so excited to share something that makes a real difference. Beam's Dream Powder. Beam is proudly founded in America and run by people who share our values, hard work and integrity, and delivering results. It's a science-backed, healthy nighttime blend packed with ingredients shown to improve sleep, so you can wake up refreshed and ready to take on the day. Dream is made with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients: reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin. Beam has already improved over 17.5 million nights of sleep, helping people across the country wake up and feel their best. Here's the deal. Beam is giving my listeners the ultimate Patriot discount of 40% off. Try their best-selling Dream Powder and get up to 40% off for a limited time. Go to shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil for up to 40% off. Support an American company, invest in yourself, and start getting your best sleep tonight.
I was not okay after my sexual assault. I started wearing all black and shaving my head. It was kind of a way to feel like I disappeared. I wanted to not be in my body. I've had this violent crime committed against me, but also hating it for being small, for not being strong enough. It does make you hate yourself.
I will tell you I've talked to a lot of sexual assault survivors, and one of the things they've told me after the fact is that one of their reactions was to kind of knee-jerk run from their femininity, try to hide it. Did you have that reaction?
Oh God, yeah. I just pushed it down. I pretended like it didn't happen. 2 or 3 weeks later, I shaved my head bald, which you don't do if you're in cosmetology school. It's actually against the rules. I started wearing pants, which I never did. I hated pants. I always wore dresses and skirts amongst my friends, the few people that knew. There was kind of a pre-break-in life and a post-break-in life. And I said, well, I think I handled it really well, all things considered. And 2 of my girlfriends just went like, did you though? Did you really? And I was like, yeah, I didn't miss work. I didn't miss school. And they were like, but you shaved your head. And you lost, because I abandoned my apartment because, the police kicked down the door, so I couldn't go back. They didn't care to repair it either, so I left.
It wasn't a safe
everything.
zone anymore.
No, I couldn't even go in to get my things. I ended up losing all my records, all my books, a lot of my clothes, my furniture. I just kind of left everything because I couldn't shut the door. So you don't want to go back in a place if you're afraid somebody's going to walk back in.
Did you actually have procedures done so if this happened again, you wouldn't wind up with a rapist baby?
I did. I had my tubes removed, tubal ligation. Because when Roe fell, I was concerned that, after I'd gone to therapy, it's like, what if this happened to me again? Would I have the emotional wherewithal to get myself to another state?
Was your therapist okay with you doing that?
Yeah, and we talked about, the sadness of saying, well, then the door is closed. I'll never have children, but I would rather never have children than be forced to have the child of a rapist. I don't want to be tied to a violent criminal for the rest of my life.
But did y'all discuss that a lot of this was a backhanded way of you owning what happened to you?
I think it was taking control.
Well, it was also saying, I got to change what I'm doing because I must have had some ownership in this. I'm shaving my head, I'm wearing pants, I'm doing things differently. You can interpret that as saying, I must have done something to contribute to this, so I'm going to change what I'm doing. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 was you had as full a recovery as could ever be expected from something like this, where would you place yourself today?
Today, I would say I'm probably about a 7, but I would say within 5 years of it happening, I was a 1 or a 2. It was just getting worse over the years.
Are you in therapy today?
Yes.
Same therapist?
Different therapist.
Next, Julianne says her attacker was never identified or apprehended. So whoever did this to her could very well be walking free among us. There wasn't the best investigation done at the time. We'll talk about all that after the break. Life is full of surprises, and emergencies often strike when we least expect them. But preparation is key, and that's where Jace Case comes in. With Jace Case, you'll have essential emergency prescription medications right at your fingertips, ready when you need them most. Whether it's an unexpected illness or a travel mishap, having the right meds on hand can turn a potential crisis into just a minor inconvenience. Don't let the unexpected catch you off guard. Jace Case gives you peace of mind so you can tackle life surprises with confidence. Be ready. Take charge today. Head over to jace.com. That's JASE.com. And when you check out, use the code PHIL, spelled PHIL, to get a discount on your order and to have the right meds on hand the moment you need them. You know, you hear sometimes people say, brave survivors, but when you have someone that's been through what she's been through, and they have the resolve and the commitment to get out of their pattern, get out of their life, go on in front of millions of people and talk about something that they've spent a lot of time trying to put in their rearview mirror. When something like that happens, does that bring all of this alive for you again?
Absolutely. Because like most women, I read a lot, or went through a period where I read a lot of true crime. And what we do know about men that commit sexual assault, that rape women, is that they are habitual, and that oftentimes it leads to more and more serious crimes. If they start fearing getting caught, that's when they start killing women.
And when you see these things reoccur, which as we say, they occur every 68 seconds, so it's in the media, you can never escape from it, reminders of it. Julianne says this monster remains free to offend again because the police failed her in every possible way. Take a look.
The night of the assault, when the police broke in, they were very aggressive. They busted down the door, screaming, yelling, guns pulled out, guns drawn at us, and they wouldn't let me put on clothes. The police there seemed irritated and angry, and like they just really didn't want to be there. And they didn't fingerprint, they didn't collect evidence, they didn't do anything. They asked me why I walked home, what I was wearing when I walked home. It's the only crime where you can say, well, maybe you're lying, maybe you deserved it. There's always this shame. I gave my statement. They said, if we find something, we'll let you know. They didn't want me calling them. Later, I found out that they had DNA evidence, and they just never bothered to let me know. I just want the criminal justice system to start treating this horrible, sexually violent crime like a crime. That's a person's life that is irrevocably damaged and destroyed, and it needs to be taken seriously.
Now, you have filed a lawsuit against the police department for how they handled or mishandled this case more accurately. And by the way, we reached out to them for a statement, and as of this taping, they haven't responded, although they've had adequate time to do so. What do you allege in your lawsuit, just generally speaking?
It was a class action lawsuit, and we alleged that we were discriminated against due to our gender, because the only prosecution that had occurred in years would be a man against a man. Every time it was a man against a woman, a man raping a woman, No conviction. They had the DNA backlog and then the defunct DNA lab because they let everything mold and they weren't testing anything. Then they were using what was called exceptional clearance. It's a tactic used by the FBI. Let's say, it's a mob case and the key witness is murdered. It's going to be exceptional clearance because they can no longer continue to pursue the case. They were using that to clear cases to keep their case clearance low. And when you take into consideration that the police told me, if you don't know who he is, we can't really help you. Then if I know him, it's not a crime. If I don't know him, you can't help me. So we're just gonna let this continue to occur. And I realized, there are thousands of young women on the street every Friday, Saturday night, every night of the week, and they're getting drugged and they're having their lives destroyed, and we have to do something.
You settled the lawsuit, and a public apology was issued. Did you feel some sense of justice, some sense of vindication?
I did.
I'm not saying it made it okay. Nothing's going to make it okay.
Yeah, from when I first started my advocacy, I was with a group, and I remember coming into our first meeting and saying, this is what happened, and telling them, no, you don't understand just how bad this is. How bad the police, they kicked down my door and left me with no place to live. I'm a petite woman, it's not like I'm gonna be out there defending myself. But this was my way of defending myself. And they pretty much told me, you gotta take it down 10 notches, Julianne. No one's gonna believe this. They're not gonna believe how bad it was. And then, of course, later in the lawsuit, we get my police report. They had DNA evidence. They never called me back. They never tested it.
They never ran it through the system?
No.
And have they now?
They closed my case. So, and if you take into consideration that my dog was stolen a week before, my roommate was tied up, which has always terrified me, because why did they do that unless they didn't want her to help me? What were they gonna do to her? What were they gonna do to me if she wouldn't have called the police when she did?
Yeah.
And that terrifies me to think that this very much looked premeditated. And I'm the exception, not the rule. Most women that are sexually assaulted by someone they know. I was not. Even when I fit into all of the things that they want, right? It was a break-in, you didn't know him, we have DNA evidence, which they call the law and order effect. Why didn't you investigate it? They didn't fingerprint, they didn't take evidence, they didn't take statements, they didn't ask anybody. So when do they investigate a sexual assault?
Is there a way to protect yourself before an assault? Many people who feel threatened turn to restraining orders. Our next guest, Mikeal, says when he felt a stranger was stalking him, he was told that he didn't qualify for a restraining order. Why? Well, we'll talk about that next. Let's cut to the chase. Your savings could be in serious trouble. When Elon Musk is out here warning us to brace for temporary hardship, you might want to listen. I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. Are you going to sit back and hope for the best or take control of your financial future? Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505. That's DRPHIL to 50505 today. Romance to rage, adoration online to in-person obsession. Tonight, you'll hear cautionary tales as stories of infatuation have captured the country's attention with Netflix shows like I Am a Stalker, You, and most recently, Baby Reindeer. Now, many of these popular shows about fixation are not fiction. Real-life tragedies highlight the challenges people face when seeking safeguards from stalkers while living in fear of potential harm. The most dangerous time for many victims is after they file for protective order. And studies found the violation rate was 40 to 50%. Mikeal says, what started as a simple DM from a female stranger has become much more alarming. She's been stalking him for 2 years now. He wants an order of protection, but says as a man and fitness trainer, he's not being taken seriously. Take a look.
My stalker found me on social media. A year later, she was pretty much stalking me every day in person. And now we're here 2 years later, and she's still stalking me. I was living in Indiana, and I got a message request. She started just going crazy with the messages. At that point, I blocked her. I announced online that I was moving to Houston to help my friend open her gym. At my grand opening for my gym, this woman approaches. Once she tells me her name, I'm like, oh my God, it's her. I was leaving the gym one night and I saw the white car following me.
You wanted to know what side of town I stay on, so you followed me home.
She was just leaving notes on my car saying that she was my stalker. We were meant to be together, that God sent her to stalk me.
Are you reading it?
I'm not reading it.
The most bizarre thing she left, it's probably the food.
That was probably opened and poisoned. It's kind of difficult because she hasn't actually done anything illegal.
I tried to get a restraining order. They said that I had to have been in a relationship with her. They told me that they couldn't arrest her because she hadn't broken the law.
Pause.
You're not welcome to be my
It
client.
don't matter. We've never had a conversation
And you're
out
not
loud.
going to.
My stalker has showed up at my job upwards of 20, 30 times.
Bro, she's back.
My stalker showed up to my school almost every day for 2 months straight.
Why do you know what school I go to and why do you know my schedule?
Have we
And
ever?
you keep doing this?
Have we ever locked eyes before?
My stalker has left probably about 50 things on my car. Notes, coupons, food, pictures. I definitely feel like I'm trapped in a corner.
You've been very clear. I don't want to deal with you. Go away, leave me alone. You've been very clear.
Absolutely. Yeah, I felt the need to be polite at the beginning. Being who I am, that's just who I am. But after a while, I just had to
Be clear. You say you've had problems with people don't take it as seriously. It's like your guy, she's a girl, come on, quit whining, get over yourself, move on. They don't take this seriously.
Right.
For every 100 men that commit intimate partner violence, there are 75 women that do it. So people don't realize it, but it goes back the other way. You can be in danger in this situation. You realize that, right?
Absolutely.
But they're not taking you seriously when you bring this to the court. When you talk to police about it, they're like, yeah, come on. What are they telling you?
Initially, the first officer I spoke to laughed. He's like, "You're getting stalked. She's stalking you, not the other way around." So that was very frustrating. They also said that since we had no relationship with each other, we weren't roommates, we weren't family, I couldn't get a protective order.
And then you moved cities, right?
Yes.
And when you moved cities, what happened?
I moved to Houston about a year and a half ago, and then she moved to Houston,
From where?
California.
Yeah, that's pretty far.
Yeah, to say the least.
We were able to track down Asia, and she spoke candidly with us about her connection to Mikeal. We did a tape with her, which I was glad that she was willing to do, but I didn't want her here. I didn't want to put her in the same room with you. Let's listen to that tape.
I met Mikeal off of Instagram. I sent him an email. I said, hey, do you want to work out together? And he was like, I'm moving. So I just started emailing him back to back. And he got to Houston and was like, if anybody has ever contacted me, let me know. I'm going to be in town. And I said, is there a way you can train me? Then next thing you know, he responded through the email. He said, yes. So after that, I drove all the way to Houston from California.
To find him?
Yeah. So I popped up on him, and he was there. And ever since then, I have his number, too. So we're trying to connect, and we're still working on that. So I would say I don't want to rush anything. I would want him to pursue me when he's ready. I don't want to scare him, because I'm just a lovely girl. I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to ask every day until I get an answer. If the answer is no, I'm gonna have to harass him again and again until I get a better answer, because that's what girls do. I feel like God will tell me when it's gonna harm anyone or put any person in jeopardy. No one has came up to me and said, like, directly, leave.
You can't come here.
I can go with her. I can go with her. People can
You're
fight all day.
trespassing.
Okay, now let's unpack this for a second. Now, that's the first time you've seen that.
It is.
What's your reaction?
It's just crazy to hear her say that she was never told she wasn't welcome and that she's going to keep doing it every day. And it's just frustrating to hear that.
Yeah. Did you notice the piercings in her nose?
Yes, the M.
Yeah. Those are M's for Mikeal.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you heard her talking about this, see this note, God told me to stalk you, how does that impact you?
It makes me upset because I'm a man of God myself, and to use God's name in vain like that, to rationalize your own motives is a lot.
Do you fear this could get really bad?
Yes. So once she started explaining her reasoning, it got more real to me that it could be a real threat because she wasn't in her right state of mind. So at that point, like, she can be erratic and she can really go over the edge, and I had to protect myself, protect my girlfriend, protect people around me. So, it's really living life with anxiety and being on the edge and having to really pay attention to what's going on around me at all times is a lot.
Yeah. Now, I've not met her. I can't diagnose her. What I can tell you is that kind of commitment across time is a red flag. That's a bad sign. That can get ugly in a hurry, and they get to the point where they say, well, if I can't have him, then nobody can.
Right.
And they can really get unpredictable in terms of what they're going to do. People, sometimes they'll see something like this and say, who does that? And when people say that to me, it's not rhetorical. They really mean, who does that?
Right.
And the answer to that is people who really feel entitled. They really personalize things to the point of saying, because I'm entitled to this, everything that you do, these type individuals can take personally, where they say, this is an affront to me that you have a girlfriend. It's an affront to me that you're not responding. It'll turn around to the point that she becomes a victim, not you.
Right.
And that you're in some way offending her, that you're hurting her. And so does Asia acknowledge that her extreme behavior amounts to stalking? Well, we asked her point blank. Let's hear what she had to say.
Are you stalking Mikeal?
Okay, so I was last year, but I stopped. I used to check up on him, and then I kind of like forgot about him. So I dropped off some gifts. Just saying like, hey, I'm not a bad person. You can always come outside and talk to me. You don't have to be scared. I just want to be his biggest fan. Honestly, I can be in the front, I can be in the back. It doesn't matter. You're gonna see me, probably. You're probably gonna be right there. So it doesn't matter. I will always be your friend, no matter the distance, no matter the closeness, no matter anything, I'm just a free person. You have a new friend in town. Why not approach her with a better attitude? Approach her with a hug.
Okay, do you hear the last thing she's saying? Why don't you change you?
Right.
It's not, I need to recognize boundaries. I need to respect someone's wishes and accept reality. Why don't you change and approach me with a better attitude? The shift is already taking place, and that's the beginning of a situation that could be out of hand.
I feel like a lot of times no one does anything until you are harmed, and I don't need to get to that point.
No, because it's not a problem until it is. And we're going to talk to a girl who never imagined her summer boyfriend would do anything to keep her from breaking up with him. You're going to find out that that was wrong when we come back. My dear friend in Merit TV, contributor Chris Harrison, spoke with my next guest, Caitlin, and Assistant Chief Jeremy Polk, who are bonded together by a series of unfortunate events. Caitlin was preparing for college when she met a man 10 years older. Their relationship only lasted for the summer, but the impact of his actions will last forever.
Tell us when you met Charles for the first time.
He was just very persistent about taking me on a date. We went out to Grapevine Lake. He was 29, I was 18. We dated a little over 2 months.
You decided to call this thing off and you break up with him.
Yes. But then after that, he began stalking me. He showed up to my dorm. My RA says that we need to file a police report. A UNT police officer comes. That lieutenant actually ends up being Officer Polk.
You just happened to catch his name and put 2 and 2 together that this young girl, Caitlin, was filing a complaint against this guy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Charles Bryan, I was like, that sounds familiar. We just arrested him last night.
Charles, what's happening, buddy? Lieutenant Polk, you remember talking to me? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then after she showed us some emails, some text messages, that all made it very real for me very fast.
And so you put up the criminal trespass, and did he adhere to this? Did he honor it at all?
No, not at all.
He shows up to my dorm again. I called the 911 campus police number, and I'm hiding in my suite mate's closet. I'm afraid that he's gonna find a way to open that door.
By the time they got there, he had already left the building. They found him outside and where he had shucked his t-shirt and was working out.
What's your name?
Even after this arrest, he's still corresponding with you. It's not stopped.
Nonstop.
I said that we were going to pursue a stalking case if you didn't stop trying to contact her.
So after we look at all these messages and we charged him with stalking, I just figured we're gonna go arrest him as fast as we can. I said, every text message, every phone call, every email, I will use that to get a new warrant written and have you arrested again until you're just so far buried in this, you're never gonna get out of it.
Now, one of the reasons that we're talking about this tonight is you've heard me say that in these kind of stories, there are a number of stakeholders. You've got the victims, you've got police officers, you've got prosecutors, you've got judges, you've got jailers who often run the jail and make decisions about how long and under what circumstances they release people. And we have to use common sense about who's released and who's not. And we're putting violent offenders on the street sometimes when we've got police officers that are doing their jobs. They're getting people off the street, they're turning them in, and they're back out on the street way too soon. Now, in this situation, Caitlin, you dated this individual for the summer.
Yes,
right?
about 2.5 months.
And what caused it to end?
I started to see some warning signs, some red flags that he wasn't a good man.
Too controlling?
Too controlling, manipulative, just a little wrong in the head. I thought he should be a little more matured than what he was, especially for being 29.
Mm-hmm. And so you thought, yeah, I just need to ease out of this.
Yeah.
August 23rd of 2016, Caitlin writes, look, just leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. And Charles responds, babe, stop. And you want to talk to me. You're just angry at me in the current situation. I'm not angry at you. I love the blank out of you. Caitlin, this relationship isn't going to work. You're controlling. You try to manipulate me into seeing you, and I don't want to be in this relationship. Very clear.
Yes, very clear.
No ambiguity
Yes.
there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out, you're gone. Charles, I'm bummed at the moment, but I'm going to prove to you I'm going to be one of the best things to ever happen to you. So he's not turning loose.
Yeah, and that's clear.
As extreme as Charles' behavior was, it was no comparison to what he did next.
But it turns out there was a murder. The body was found at Lake Grapevine.
Caitlin's hometown. Charles and Caitlin, I think, had spent some time at Grapevine Lake. Somebody called, it was the detective working that case. The first thing he said to me was, Charles Bryan is our suspect in this Grapevine Lake murder. And I just was like, what?
So Officer Polk arrests him for stalking, and then he's released 48 hours later. He goes up to Denton, where he meets Jackie Vandergriff. The next day, her body is found at Grapevine Lake.
So Charles came to town looking for you and murders her.
Yes. An innocent woman. He didn't just like dismember her body either. He cut out her heart, cut off her face, and just, what does that mean? I don't know. But the fact that he dumped her body at Grapevine Lake it felt like it was a message to me.
Well, and that protective order may have actually saved Caitlin's life.
And that's exactly what they're for. It gives us the power to arrest someone which we otherwise wouldn't have had that power.
You pieced this together really fast.
It was a wild sequence of events because I had actually met Charles the night before she ever called us for the first time. And because I was just driving down a road, stopped him for traffic violations, and then we ended up actually stopping next to her residence hall. And I didn't think anything of that at the time. That was just a routine interaction until I heard his name the next day when Caitlin called us.
Wow. So what made you call the next day?
He showed up to my dorm. I hadn't given him prior information as to where that dorm location was. So when I get a knock at the door, I've got some girls in the room. I open the door and I see it's him. And I'm completely stunned. And I just sent him a text and I said that this is over, and I was very clear about it. And that's when I had to make a police report, as advised by my RA. I didn't really want to, but I'm so glad we did. It's honestly crazy how the pieces just like fell into place. And that's when Officer Polk connected the dots that I was being stalked before I knew I was being stalked.
And people always say, what's a point in getting a TRO or whatever, temporary restraining or whatever? People stab right through the paper, they'll shoot right through the paper, it doesn't matter. It does matter because it's in the system. It takes a lot of steps out of the process if you pick up the phone and call, because all of that's already adjudicated, right? And it gives police the ability to move with intention at that point.
It basically gives you powers to do things you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Like, I normally can't arrest someone just for being at a location or for sending a text message or making a phone call. So it's a very important piece.
Yeah. And you had just pulled him over previously on a normal traffic stop. And if Caitlin hadn't put his name in the system and on the radar, that wouldn't have meant anything to you.
Yeah, I was even standing in the call center when she called in. And when I saw the name being typed in the computer, I was like, I'm a part of this. I just met this person. You know, I'm already involved. So that was real for me.
How long is he in for? 25 to life?
He's serving a life sentence, but he can get out in 33 years on parole.
Yeah.
I'll deal with that when I have to deal with that.
Yeah, which is decades from now.
Yeah, we got some time. I'm very grateful because most victims of stalking don't get the luxury of having their stalker locked away that long.
Yeah.
Most only serve a year to 2 years, and that time is oftentimes split in half.
Yeah. And Mikeal, you see my point about saying these things can go south.
Absolutely.
Coming up, an axe murder victim and a single mom of 3 who repeatedly warned police about her violent ex. We'll hear from her father after the break. This next story is gut-wrenching, but all too common for domestic violence victims. Now, Chris Harrison sat down with Jerry, a grieving parent whose daughter was murdered in an axe attack, allegedly by her youngest child's father years after getting a protective order. Take a look.
Tell me about your daughter, Julie.
She was my 3rd child, the youngest. She was a very good mother. Around 2018, she ran into Mr. DeWitt. They started to pursue a relationship. On a Saturday afternoon, she came home and he wound up throwing a playpen at her, and she required 5 staples in her head. 2019, she got a restraining order against him. Mid-November 2022, he sent her 200 texts. The texts were very threatening and hostile. That was a violation of the restraining order. He did enough that he should have been arrested, and 5 days later, he left his parents' house, grabbed an axe, got into a rideshare vehicle, drove for an hour to where my daughter lives, walked into the house, and struck her with the axe and killed her. To this day, I have nightmares about the last 5 minutes of her life. I just can't stop thinking of that and what she must have gone through.
There was a failure. There are crazy and horrible, horrific things are going to happen, but when they don't have to,
that hurts the most, yes. She did everything right.
She went above and beyond to try and be her own advocate. It sounds like she didn't find an advocate that was standing behind her. in the judicial system.
They didn't follow through on it, and that is something that we're hoping to get some clarity on. She was let down by the system. This did not have to happen. This did not have to happen.
I'm back with Father Jerry and their family attorney, Mikeal Rosnick. It's so good to meet you, and I'm so sorry for the circumstances.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.
This was on the radar. This wasn't something that came out of nowhere.
No, a lot of what was spoken about earlier, my daughter did take advantage of. She did do all the right things. However, I want to say the system failed, but the system is only as good as the components in it, and I think it's more or less some of the components didn't work.
Respectfully, we feel this is a case of civil wrongdoing. It's clear-cut. This was a preventable tragedy.
You say that an officer never resubmitted the warrant for processing.
That's correct. He completed it, submitted it to the state's attorney. The state's attorney handed it back to him for some clarity, and it's unclear at this stage what happened to it after that. It never surfaced again until a few days after my daughter's murder.
Robin, you hear it all the time, people saying, you know, if you're in a situation, just leave. And your comment is, no, you don't just leave. You got to have a plan to leave safely, right?
That's correct. You can't just leave, because that's the most dangerous time in your life when you're with an abuser. You have to plan ahead. You have to be very careful about leaving. You have to plan ahead as far as tell someone, those that know and that you trust, that you're in that situation. Then you have to have a plan, and you have to tell others of your plan. You have to have a place to go. You have to have a bag packed, especially if you have children. You have to have familiar toys. You have to have clothes. Very important to have all of your papers in order, birth certificates, everything you need to start a new life and to get out and stay out, and especially a private place to go, a shelter. Have everything in place before you leave, and make sure you tell someone where you're going so they can help you, and make sure it's private and your abuser could never find you.
Your daughter did everything right.
Yes.
That's the problem here. You know, I've said before that one of the things that makes good people vulnerable to bad things happening is we don't go to that dark place. I mean, in the normal functioning, you don't think about going and killing somebody with an axe. You don't think about murdering somebody and cutting their heart out and their face off. You don't even think about that. That gives them the advantage, because you don't protect against that sort of thing, because you don't even conceive of it. This can cost people their lives. We need to pay attention to this. I want to thank all of my guests tonight. A special thanks to Merit TV.